Hi, I'm Tony Moore. Welcome to Killer Drums. Today we're working on this lovely drum set. This is an old 90s Pearl Masters custom. Belongs to a friend of mine, Andy Griffiths. Actually, I'll give him a shout out. He makes Andy's custom cables. If you're looking for cables for all your recording and audio needs, give him a shout, give him a yell, and he can hook you up. So, Pearl Masters custom. What are we doing today? We're going to fit on this a couple of floor tom legs. Pretty simple process. I'm going to show you how to mark them out, how to drill them, how to fit them, and get them sounding great. Second thing we've got to do is we've got to cut these toms down. This is a 10 by 10 and this is a 12 by 10. Modern drums are generally a lot more shorter, bit of a hark back to traditional drum sizes, to be honest. So we have a few obstacles to get around here on this drum set, namely, and I'll show you on the inside here. If you look at that little re-ring, or reinforcement ring to be technical, this reinforcement ring has to come out and we've got to put it back in. So to make that like factory, that's a fair bit of work. This isn't for the faint-hearted, I'll tell you right now. But even so, I'm going to show you how you do it.
They're all just reaching for a piece of you.
So you have a look here. I want to show you a couple of things quickly. I'll just find a little join line on here. All right, so I got my pencil. As you can see, the drum shell thickness, which looks and feels to be about 6 mil, I'll check that later, but looks about that, would probably finish about there on that line. Not sure if you can see that, but that line there is probably the drum shell. You can see here that there's a scarf joint. A scarf joint is a joint that folds back over itself. So it's a 45 degree with another 45 degree, and they lay up on the inside. Then on the inside of this drum, the airbag pushes out, or whatever clamping system you want to use, pushes out and seals that and fits it in nice and tight. So we've got a couple of problems to sort out, and there's a couple of ways to do it. Again, I'm trying to just use what you might have at home. Some people aren't going to have a saw bench. We need a saw bench to cut them down. I'm going to show you how to do them on the saw bench. You may have to go and get that done outside. And then I'm going to bring you back in and we'll look at how to get these reinforcement rings out intact and put it back like factory. All right, so first things first, we've got to get rid of all the hardware. We're going to run a time lapse so you're not wasting your time. We'll get the hardware off and then I'll come back and show you what we're going to do. Awesome. Hey guys, all right, so we've pulled everything off. So we've got two projects that we're actually doing here at the same time, as we know. First one is floor tom legs to this 14-inch. Second job is cut these two down. So I want to look at this first and map it out for you so you know what you got. Now this is a tip for beginners and me. When you're working on cut downs, it's absolutely imperative that you know which side is the top. Okay, so I am not going to make the mistake. Believe me, it has and does happen. All right, so this is the top side. I'm actually going to write on it top like that, and I'm actually going to put some squiggles down here just so I know. It's a safe check measure. Going to do the same on this one here. Double check where your top was. Normally in my process, I would have that marked in advance, but because I'm kind of working over the drums and backwards, it's all being shot all out of sequence. So anyway, it is what it is. So here we go. This is the top. Now the problem area that we've got is we want to relocate these lugs here from there and move it up one. So I want to reuse this hole. If you can come in nice and close, you'll see that hole there. I want to reuse that hole for that one. And that means I want to cut this part off just here. All that will go. So we need to chop that off, but we have to keep this reinforcement ring here. So how do we do that? There's two ways to do it. Just lost something important. It's okay, we will hunt that out later. That's the little insert for our lug. So I've got backups, but it went down that hole, just remind me. Okay, so two things we've got to do. We've got to chop this off, We can do that very simply by putting it on the saw. I'll actually do this in a minute. We'll pull this across to that angle and we'll chop that piece off. But before I do that, there's something that I wanted to do, and I'm just going to have a look quickly and see how many mil we're talking about. Okay, so there's two ways to do this process. We can either route off the material on the outside to reveal and leave only the material that we have here for our re-ring, which exactly is, da-dun-da-da. Okay, can you see that? 5 mil. So the re-ring is 5 millimeters exactly on there, but the thickness of the whole drum itself is actually going to be 9 millimeters. So that means our actually 9.5. So our drum shells, 4.5, re-ring would be actually 4.5. It'd be the same material. When you actually make drums from scratch, we don't actually, well, okay. Premier used to use a solid piece of steamed beech as their re-ring, and it was just stock timber, steam bent, and then bent around and dropped in, nailed off, as did maple, I think, or beech might have been used in Ludwig's. But these particular drums are actually the same shell here, it's just scarf jointed and put in. Here you go, look, an easy way to sort of exemplify that is, let's just say that was a bit of our drum shell, and that drum shell was like that all the way around, and then we actually take the shell and we're going to cut it on a scarf. We then bring it in onto the inside and we measure it and we actually trim it so that it fits back in there. That's one way to actually do it. I might have a drum or two coming up where I can actually show you that process as well, if not on this one. But let's cut these drums down first. I'm just going to cut it off. Oh, that's what I was talking about. There's two ways to actually do it. I can either just cut this piece off and then I deal with getting the the re-ring out later, or I can leave it intact and I can machine this down while it's attached to the drum to the re-ring, and then pop the re-ring out. But I think for the purposes of this video, I just do a cut down and then I'll deal with that ring. It'll serve my purposes better. So I'm going to be checking both drums here. Let's organize them like that and that. So I'm measuring down to that hole from the top edge. I think you'll see that that is 207 mil. And this one here is 207 mil. So to cut these, we're going to set our fence up 207 mil. Now we're just shuffling all this along. Generally, you would move everything and do this properly, but again, we're just working with what we got in the place that we've got. So 207, if you come in here, you'll see me line this up. Get rid of our air gun. So right here, 207 to there. Now what I'm going to do is something a little bit different. I'm going to add 0.5 mil. So I'm just going to move this fence over, add 0.5 mil. And I'm going to call that the idiot mill. It's just in case something goes wrong. Okay, so we'll lock that off. Now, how do we protect this? If I put that on there and run that around, you know what's going to happen? I'm going to have scratches all over it. So we can do a couple of things. We can get masking tape and run rings of masking tape around it. That's okay. I'm going to actually use this over here. It's like, if you don't have this, you may have Glad wrap, which is plastic film wrap in your kitchen. Same stuff. Okay, so all you need to do is get that roll, get a starting point and wrap it round. I'm going to do that here with this one. Because I don't have cling wrap, I've got this instead. This is a little bit more fiddly, but the same principle applies. I'm just going to hold that on there. I'm pulling it a little bit tight to stretch it. And all that's actually doing is putting a film around my drum just to stop any kind of scratching. Okay, I'm just going to do 2 rounds of it. As I said, it is actually a little bit easier if you've got kitchen film wrap. Okay, that's it. Remember, where is our top? Top is there. I'm going to remark the top so I know. On top of that, believe me, it happens when you're flipping stuff upside down. top. Same on this one here. Just wrap this up. We just want to make sure we don't get any scratches on this stuff. There's also an excellent product you can buy from cabinet suppliers, and it's actually a tackless film. They often use it on hardwood flooring once the floor has gone down, to stop tradies who come in afterwards from scratching everyone's floors. And it's great too. I think you can get that at Bunnings, Home Depot, those kinds of places. All right, once again, finding our top. I'm going to mark that again. Top, I'll still write on it, just so you know. Ta-da. Okay, get some earplugs. And some for our cameraman, who's going to come and do a close-up of this while I put these on his head. There we go. Look after your staff. He's not my staff, he's my son. He's doing a great job. Okay, so we're going to boot up the saw. I'll talk you through it. Sorry, I keep kind of forgetting. Obviously, we start with our top, goes that side. What we're actually doing is we're using this as called a fence. And we're going to push this against the fence. Now, if you bring the camera to here and look straight down this line, when I push this over, two things happen. Number one, it touches at the bottom like that. Number two, it touches up here as I straighten it. That's actually very, very firm. So that's not moving this way at all. There's no twist. So providing that I keep pressure that way, I can spin this drum and I won't have any trouble. So that's number one. Second thing is I move the drum in so that I'm halfway into the shell, so that this is actually cutting, the blade is cutting from here to here, and that way it's not chipping out so much, because it will chip. If there's tension, it will chip. Okay, here we go. Just turn the power up, hang on. Here we go. That's the top. You come in here, have a look in here. Look down in there. Okay, now I want to show you something close while I've got you. Is you'll see on the outside, our measurement's pretty good, so there's a little tiny bit of that old screw. If we look on the inside though, you'll see there's a little bit too much of it there. Again, that's our 1/2 mil. I'm going to move the fence 1/2 mil. I'm just doing it by eyes because I've done it enough, I know what it is going to be. You'll also notice that on the inside there's those little marks from the washer. I'm not worried about those little marks either. They will come out because I'm going to put this re-ring back in place. Top. Putting pressure that way, pushing this way. This hand I'm holding here. This one, pull it straight back. awesome. 10 fingers, all good. Okay, let's have a bit of a look in here. This is where you get to see the cool stuff about inside their drums, right? So now we get to see how they've laid up their drum. You can see on the outside, here's another scarf edge. So there's your join. That shows you that, I think you can see that line there. So the pearl drums, they cut a big piece through here and then they scarf joint it. It's actually a very, very great way to make a drum shell, because when you overlay, you've got all this surface area of glue holding its shape, whereas when you butt together, it can easily just snap, but when it's butted together. Here's our re-ring. Again, you can now actually see it's exactly the same. So that layup is exactly the same as this layup. So I could technically make a re-ring just out of that outer edge, but I don't. I want to use this one because it's probably more difficult, and I thought, why not use it? Okay, so I'll quickly chop this one down and then I'll jump into the next little process for you. So that's number one. Okay, again, finding our top goes that side. When I'm turning this drum, I'm holding my hand here. This hand's actually is keeping it so that it's not moving like that. It's actually holding it firm. I'm holding it with my thumb like that, back around here, and I'm pulling it against this fence. This hand is actually guiding the drum and pushing against the fence. So at no time is that drum going to move. If you don't have that drum held tight, what will happen is it'll turn, it will grab, and this cutter's throwing forward, it will throw this up into your face. And once it starts to turn, it will throw it at probably 3,200 revolutions per minute, which is pretty damn fast. Okay, last time I saw a tradie was doing that with a little piece of wood, like this, just pushing it through, which we do all the time. But when he got to here, it just jarred a little bit. When it jarred, it caught, and the back end threw up and smacked his front teeth out. Yay, that's good for your cover shot. All right, here we go. Top that way, pushing over, moving it in, slow. Okay, I just thought I'd show you quickly. If you get into trouble on any saw bench, there's normally buttons around here like this. So see how we got stop buttons? So all I'm doing is leaning against it to turn it off. Just so you know, you don't have to try and, if it starts spinning, hold your hands down to the bench, lock it tight, do not let it go, and whack that button. All right, to start it again, I'm just gonna pull it back. See my hand here, holding that together like that. Last cut. Separate that out like that. Pull this back. Okay, if you come in and have another look, you can see all the timber around here. Chop, 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 chop. All looks pretty nice. That's just where I started, went in and out, so don't worry about that too much. Now let's just have a look on this piece. So you can see with the plastic in place, it actually kept it pretty damn good. No scratches. It's just a really great way to keep it tight. Now, that's the minimum we can go with using this lug. I did want to check how much different is it going to be from the top side. So as you can see, from this edge here, back to the edge of our first hole, I'll put it that way for you. It's going to be 38 millimeters, so that side's 38. This side here is going to be 33. So there's a 5mm difference between the position of this lug in relation to this lug. I'm okay with that. If I wanted to be really, really fussy, if this was like, I don't know, I wanted to just get it exactly the same, I've got two options. I can either bog the holes up, move them back to the very edge of that, and re-drill back here. That will get me that extra 5mm. You'll never see that, but it's not worth the extra effort. That'll probably take maybe 3 hours to do that, and 5mm, people aren't really going to notice it. In fact, if you're using a single playhead and a double playhead, there's actually about 3mm difference between the way those two heads tension up anyway. So it's not an issue. You won't even notice it. Now that I've told you, you might though. Okay, so the next component that we've got to do is get this re-ring off. So we'll drop that over there. Normally, I don't leave hardware here like this because it's covered in dust, but we'll just blow all that off later on. Now, how the heck do we get this part off from this part? There's only two ways to do it, okay? You either mechanically snap it off or you use a machine to cut it off. I'm going to try something completely different this time round, something that I haven't done before. And I'm just thinking as I go, but I think I might drop this down so that the lead edge, the top edge here, is underneath that there. Okay, it's only just starting to peek through. So what I'm going to do is set up this edge over on this side, bring this way. Remember, all I'm trying to do is to free this ring off. I said I could mechanically snap it, but if I break it, I'm just of two minds at the moment. I think I may even be able to save a piece. Generally, when Pearl make their drums, they use a heat glue, and the heat glue is pretty damn good, and it also goes into, I think they call it an ultra cut, I don't know, some kind of a molding system where this thing comes up on the inside and it completely pressurizes the drum to keep it absolutely perfect and in round. Very hard to pop stuff out when it's like that, whereas old school methods, it's a little bit different. Anyway, let's try this. May as well just dive in. I need a measurement. That measurement is the distance from that edge to the outside of the bearing edge here, which is actually 23 mils, see, from here to here. And the reason is I want the saw blade to be right there. So set this up to the outside edge, 23 mil. We'll probably need about 6 cuts and we're done. Get my earplugs back in. I'll get this ring over here as well. Only other thing just keep in mind is that don't have too much hanging over the edge, because although that's just really super thin, it does actually bulk up and we don't want it too bulked up. I technically could rip that off now. In fact, I will, because I want to show you what happens. Okay. This is, you know, you can see there's no mega scratches, though it is an old drum. So when I turn this through here, I'll give it 1 or 2 turns, we'll see what happens. Same thing, always. I'll wait for it to stop. Always keep your hands clear, know where they are. Now we're getting very close to the blade, okay? Our hands are closer, everything's closer. You'll notice I always have one hand that's locked to something. I'm holding here and holding there. If this catches, if it pulls, I've got something that it's clamped up to. All right, here we go. Okay, it's pretty good. I reckon I can go a fraction the other way. Okay, I'm just checking. It's about 4.5 mil. Technically, that should be right next to that. I can feel it. It's very close. Okay, I'm going to lift this blade up just a fraction. Okay, it's looking pretty good. I can almost see daylight. See here? Okay. So if you look very carefully, I've just started to break through on that little edge, but I've still got all the meat behind here, okay? So I'm just making sure that I still have enough material to put these back in place, because if I cut too much out, I'll never get them back in. It'll be too gappy. So at the moment, that's why I'm just doing a couple of checks here. It's probably a fraction too high, so I am going to drop it a little, but I'm right on the money anyway. Other ways to do this is with a router. You set a router up with a bit like, I can't get to them. So router cutter with a bit like this, with the step down, it's called a rabbit bit, and that actually just hacks all this out. That's another way to do it. It's a very, very messy way. I haven't done it this way, so I thought, let's try it. I'm pretty sure this will be pretty damn good actually. So we're gonna get this one done. Let's have a look. Okay, so yeah, you can see we do have some marks running around here by spinning it. I'll probably buff out, but yeah, it's a good idea to have it set up the other way. Here we go. See, pretty much all loose there. We're going to cut this off. Okay, so one thing I'm feeling already is I can feel it pulling back as it's passing through. I can feel it kind of kicking a little bit. That's just because I'm trying to keep my hands away. Just looking at it, it actually looks pretty good. Yep, feel pretty good. Yeah, cool. So I'm going to take a little bit more off this one, a little bit more off that one. Then I'll trim all these down, and then I'll show you where we're at and we can pick it up from there. I can't do a scarf joint on this one to show you how to drop them inside yet, but when I get the saw back up, I'll do a scarf joint and show you. So I might keep going with this, and we'll come back in a minute. Awesome, we'll see you soon. Awesome. All right, come around here, have a look at this. Okay, so we did two different versions here. This one, which is on the 12, I cut the ring off first and then tried to rotate this piece. On this one, I let it set back. You can see daylight through here. So it's pretty close, but it's stayed intact. This is much easier to do than this one. A little bit safer too. So I'm just thinking out loud, I probably wouldn't do this way as a DIY. There's a lot of things happening, too many processes that could go wrong. So I'd probably use the router. I'd leave it on the shell and I'd come up a little bit off the bottom first and I'd router most of the material away from that re-ring to begin with, and then I'd go from there. But I just want to show you really quickly before I go and trim these up. I mentioned about doing a scarf joint, so I'll show you how they happen. So let's just say this is our ring for our 12-inch tom here, and we want to pop that into there. So let's say we're going to use that. I'm just going to cut this through on a bit of an angle. I'm going to freehand it. Whenever you're doing some stuff freehand, just be very, very careful. This here. All right, have a look. Just come in up over the top. Now you'll see that's a scarf joint there. That scarf joint would sit in here and we basically squish this around, and I have to do another scarf joint on there to make up the difference. How do we measure it? We put it in the opposite way, like that. We push it out as tight as we can get it. Unfortunately, I've got this right on my the hole here. You can see that little hole, which is not ideal, but for the experiment, it's fine. I'm just doing a temporary mark. I can't even see the mark, so let's try it on the other side. So we expand that out. I'm pulling that as tight as I can out to get expansion. Make sure my pencil is actually working. It's the pencil, that's what it's doing. One sec. Okay. Get that into place again. Pushing that out as far as I can. I just need a line, something to guide on. So I've got a line there. Not sure if you can see it. This one here. Now I'm going to cut this through, and I'm going to cut that on that angle, but I'm going to line it up as best I can. See that? It's not too bad. I'm just going to adjust it. Okay, come in. So that's basically what a scarf joint is. Remember, that was our old top rim out here like this. Now, because I've cut it, look what actually happens. A lot of people think when you bend ply, it flexes out, but watch this. Flexes in. So, pretty simple. So to put this in place, I drop that side in there, and then I'm push this out to here, and that's how you do the scarf joint for a re-ring. All right, you'd adjust that. You'd spend quite a bit of time just getting it tight and perfect. The last little bit, it should actually be hammered in a bit, right? It should be a bit firm. If you've got it firm, then all you actually need is one clamp just there to hold that there in place. Everything else around here just relines up. It's fairly simple. So we're not using that though. We're going to try and get these out, these little suckers out. So what do we do there? Actually, I'll throw that there. I'll throw this over here. We'll drop this onto the floor. Okay, so as we were talking, two different ways that we did that. I do prefer this way, but I've still got to separate it off this hoop. Easiest way to separate it, Stanley knife. I'm going to put it in here and I'm just going to literally just score around on top of my bearing edge, nice and flat. Can you see that there? I'm just rotating that. I can already feel it cutting. Remember what I said when using Stanley knives, never point them back at you. So always try and go away. Here, I'm actually pushing that direction and my hand's over the top. If it slips, it's going there, okay? So I'm just cutting through ever so slightly. I can hear it all creaking, so it's definitely loosening. We're about to break through, in part. Okay, pretty much done anyway. Ta-da! Okay, so that's the ring off. This is actually the re-ring, and yep, pretty much bang on. So now how do I clean this off? It's really technical. You just push it down, just like that. Okay, so I'm just literally pushing it down. Then I can get a knife or a blade and just chop that off. I use a blade or a sharp chisel, and you'll see I'm actually just chopping down like that all the way around to take off most of the burden first. Just want to get rid of all the big crunchy stuff. Because I'm using the bearing edge as well, that was cut on that inside of the 45, which is here, I've left this ring in place. And how I'll treat that is when I get to this stage, once I've cleaned down, actually I'll just clean down quickly on one side. Now, also these are very, 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 very difficult to fit in. So I'm actually doing it this way because it is the most difficult way to do it. Now, what I mean by it's difficult, let me just use that drum. So when you've got a scarf joint, you can just bend it in and just drop it in and out it goes. It's that simple, right? Bit of glue, bit of pressure, and you're finished. The way I'm doing it today, I'm taking all the crap off of the outside thing. So I've got an inside reinforcement ring, and then it's going to be absolutely precise. And then I'm just going to drop it in and very carefully with glue, seat it in place and not touch it again. That's why I'm choosing to do it this way. It's a little bit difficult, but we don't know until we have a go. So I've done it this way on a complete Signia drum set. About 11 different drums, and I did it this way. There's a lot of work. I certainly wouldn't do it for a client that way in the future. So Andy, you're welcome. Okay, so I'm just trimming that down. Again, very difficult on doing it on the camera side. Normally I'd sit here like this and very precisely just tap, tap, tap with my temporary hammer and just trim that off, but I'm not doing that. Okay, so once I get to this bottom here, I literally just put that on an angle and I'd give a tap. Back up on an angle. You'll see that that's now starting to actually separate that piece. I'd do that and I just tap that all the way around and that piece just falls away. Next thing, light sand, a very flat square sand, and then I check. I sand, I check, I sand, I check until it fits. So, hey guys, so we're right in the middle of this project. The first bit you've seen, we've cut the re-rings off, we've trimmed them all down and we're ready to put them in. Check back for part 2. We'll show you how to put them in and to get your drum all back together again. I'm Tony Moore and this is Killer Drums. See you on part 2.